Alrighty, folks. We're almost live. How are you? And we are back. Welcome back to another live session. We're going to talk more about creatine timing, drawing upon a recently published paper titled, I'm going to pause my screen here, Creatine O'Clock, Does Timing of Ingestion Really Influence Muscle Mass and Performance? I'll share with you that review article right here. This was published in Frontiers in Science and Active Living, which is a phenomenal read here if you want to dive more into it. We're going to focus on the timing of creatine intake and whether or not optimizing timing of creatine can influence athletic performance and sports performance. And I want to share with you just some background and perspective and keep it really simple. The purpose of these live sessions is to really dive into your questions, have a free-flowing discussion here, a theme discussion about exercise performance. We're doing a lot of research on the importance of muscle mass, the importance of VO2 max as an independent and most strongly predictive biomarker in terms of preventing all-cause mortality, cardiovascular mortality, and cancer mortality. So exercise and exercise performance are huge goals. They should be of yours. They are of mine and of this channel. So if you're enjoying the content, you know what to do. Hit that like button. I love to know where you all are from and any questions that you do have. So we have some questions right off the top. I'm just going to get to this and honor our live listeners here. So one question was about, that was my rooster in the background, just in case you heard that, from the YouTube handle Warhammer. Hair loss from creatine. Let's talk about that. So there was one study in rugby players in 2009 that found that when rugby players took creatine along with other dietary supplements that were undisclosed, there was an increase in dihydrotestosterone by 53%. And that caused people to speculate that creatine might enhance hair loss. But we know that creatine enhances strength and exercise performance. And so it could be an exercise-induced increase in dihydrotestosterone. Now, if you're a male and you're worried about a mild bump in DHT, then maybe you have no business, with all due respect, taking creatine, because what we want to do is have exercise-induced increases in anabolic hormones. So the concern about the mild increase in dihydrotestosterone, I'm not particularly worried about that. I don't want to lose my hair. I have a full head of hair. I've been taking creatine since 1998. My junior year playing football, this was when creatine was a big deal. I was really big into creatine and have been taking it ever since, off and on. I cycle through it. But the link between creatine and hair loss, there is no link. There is an exercise-induced increase in dihydrotestosterone in people who supplement a very high amount of creatine. In that particular study, the rugby players were consuming 20 to 30 grams per day. Now, that might cause some water retention, increase exercise performance. But again, it's not that it directly causes hair loss. Look, as this article talks about, that we're talking about today, creatine is made by methionine, glycine, and arginine by your kidneys and your liver. Okay, your kidneys and liver are making this compound. Now, when you take it supplementally, you're increasing the muscular storage of creatine. And that is not going to the hair follicle and causing the hair to fall out. It might help you exercise harder. And in so doing, you might transiently increase your dihydrotestosterone, and that could potentially, in genetically prone individuals, exacerbate some genetically prone male pattern baldness. But again, we want to have exercise increases in hormones. We know many men, particularly young men now, are suffering from low testosterone. So please don't shy away from creatine for fear that it'll cause hair loss. It might make you exercise a little bit harder, more vigorously, and that could cause a mild bump in anabolic hormones, which I think are warranted because we know testosterone levels are on the decline. So again, thanks for hitting that like button. Let's dive into the study and talk about creatine timing. Again, the title of the paper that we're talking about right here today is titled Creatine O'Clock, Does Timing of Ingestion Really Influence Muscle Mass and Performance? So what I'll do is I'll just minimize this on the screen so that we can all be talking about the same thing, and I'll go through and just read to you some of the quotes here, which I think were quite interesting when it comes to what creatine does. And it turns out the timing doesn't really matter. The timing matters around exercise. So if you want to optimize the absorption of creatine, you should have it before or after training. That's basically the take-home message from this study and multiple studies that have found that when people consume creatine around exercise, they get a 37% increase in intramuscular creatine stores within a 2-hour window. So I suggest taking a little creatine before and after your workout. That's just what I personally do. There might be some enhanced co-ingestion of creatine and carbohydrates. So maybe before you go to the gym, you have some fruit, some yogurt, some whey protein. There might be some increases in creatine absorption due to the carbohydrate and protein combination. It turns out that possibly insulin influences the sodium-potassium transporter that helps creatine get into your muscle cells. And so if you have a mild transient increase in insulin, that might help increase the absorption of creatine, which of course could be utilized as that phosphagen system to help with muscular endurance, muscular power. And that's basically what we want to focus on, because most of the research when it comes to creatine suggests that creatine helps to increase exercise performance consistently in elderly people, young subjects, middle-aged subjects, women, you name it. Creatine around exercise helps increase peak power and performance, especially during high-intensity, short-duration exercises such as HIIT training, CrossFit, or resistance training. So let me read to you a few different quotes here from this article. Okay, muscle concentrations increase blood flow and possibly creatine transport kinetics, which has led some to speculate that creatine in close proximity to resistance training sessions may lead to superior improvements in muscle mass and performance. Furthermore, creatine co-ingestion with carbohydrates or a mixture of carbohydrates and protein that alter insulin uptake could enhance creatine absorption. Now, let's talk a little bit more about one particular study that I think is quite interesting. This was a study, I believe, in endurance-trained athletes. They were doing a cycling exercise on a unilateral bike, so just one leg was doing the exercise session, and they were taking creatine at 6 different times throughout the day. And what this study, the researchers, investigators in this study found that creatine supplementation significantly increases total creatine content following supplementation in both legs. However, there was a 25% increase in the control leg and a 37% increase in the exercised leg. And we're talking about creatine absorption within the muscle tissue. So again, the exercised muscle will increase creatine absorption and uptake. So if you're trying to optimize athletic performance and strength and the like, then you might want to co-ingest creatine around exercise, which is the summary slide in this article. The scientists say exercise-induced muscle hyperemia paired with creatine absorption may alter creatine uptake and retention. Creatine peaks within the 2-hour window after ingestion and remains elevated for up to 4 hours, while blood flow may return to baseline within 30 minutes after exercise. Based on these mechanisms, creatine before exercise may be ideal. Now, I say maybe ideal and emphasize that because some people take creatine after exercise, but we know that creatine helps with the phosphagen system. It helps with ATP production during exercise. So the time to take creatine, in my estimation, is before you exercise. Okay, continuing on. The scientists say exercise modulates the sodium-potassium pump actively. Therefore, pairing creatine absorption with maximal pump activity may enhance creatine uptake. However, sodium-potassium activity is upregulated for much longer than creatine in close proximity to exercise. Therefore, creatine in close proximity to exercise, either before or after, may be ideal compared to at other times of the day. All right. So I want to make sure that we're getting any questions here. Again, thanks for being here live. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button. Let me know if you have any questions, and we are going to continue on. Now, I mentioned the word sodium-potassium pump. That's important to recognize that co-ingestion of creatine with electrolytes increases the absorption of creatine. That's important to acknowledge. And just a small quick plug, that's what we do over here at MyoScience. We're one of the only companies that's pairing real salt with creatine and Albion chelated minerals. That is known as the electrolyte sticks. There's 3 different versions there. We have the unflavored version, we have the orange version, and the lemon lime version available. You can save using the code podcast at checkout. This is, again, one of the only creatine containing electrolytes featuring real salt. So you can check that out over at myoscience.com and save with the code podcast. Okay. There's something else that I want to share with you, another particular study. And I thought this was really interesting. And this was actually a study in women. So in the most recent study examining creatine timing, 14 female athletes were randomized to supplement with creatine for 5 days, followed by performing exercise training in the morning or in the evening. And what they found on non-training days, participants consumed the creatine at their leisure. And again, the dose here was based upon body weight, 0.3 kilograms per pound of lean tissue per day. And what they found is that the let me go back here. After 12 weeks of supplementation and training, there was a significant increase in upper body muscular power as assessed via medicine ball throw and lower body strength. And this was a one rep maximum squat with no differences between creatine ingestion strategies, meaning the timing of creatine didn't really matter so long if it was consumed around exercise. Now, there's yet one more highlight that I want to mention here, and then we'll get to your live questions. So it's important to recognize right here. After supplementation and training, individuals supplementing with creatine, independent of the timing of the ingestion, experience similar increases in lean mass and muscle strength. As characterized by 1 repetition maximum on a chest press and leg press. Furthermore, creatine supplementation before and or after training sessions resulted in greater gains in upper and lower body strength compared to placebo. So meaning if you consume creatine before or after, it probably doesn't matter. So just sometime around exercise, because there's increased blood flow to the skeletal muscle, and that blood flow may enhance the absorption of the creatine. The scientists underscore right here, these results provide further evidence that the timed ingestion of creatine immediately before or immediately after resistance training leads to similar gains in measures of muscle mass and strength across different age ranges. And they say it is becoming clear that creatine supplementation around 5 grams per day for up to 32 weeks during a resistance training program is well tolerated, effective, and an effective strategy to augment measures of muscle mass and strength. To date, it appears that pre-exercise, several hours before or immediately prior to training sessions, and post-exercise immediately following or several hours after training sessions, creatine produce similar muscle results in both young and older adults. So again, the timing is not so important so long as it is consumed around exercise. And that's the important thing, because when you're exercising, you're moving your skeletal muscle, you're moving blood around, and that can optimize the absorption of the creatine. So if you want to maximize your exercise sessions and get the most mileage from your workouts, around exercise is going to be the best time to take creatine. Around the luteal phase of women's menstrual cycle, the creatine kinase enzyme is dramatically upregulated. So that might be a good time as well for women to consume a little bit more creatine, because they could absorb and utilize the creatine a little bit better. Okay, let's get to some of your live questions. Again, friends, thanks for being here. Thanks for hitting that like button. It's always good to connect with you and chat more about these different topics. Okay. Great question here from Axiom 9000. Does creatine break a fast? You know, the question here, I think it's an important one to acknowledge. I don't think creatine breaks a fast. No one really knows what does or doesn't break a fast. Can you have 50 calories, 100 calories? Is it 20 calories? No one really actually knows. So I think the more important point to focus on is what helps optimize your athletic performance. What helps get you more mileage from your exercise sessions? And if having a little creatine does that, then I think there is no problem with doing so. So I think it's more important to have focus on having a better workout as opposed to being myopically concerned upon what does or doesn't break a fast. Great question here. Okay, Gina says, is creatine going to help me with my goals? You know, Gina, I don't know what your goals are. What are your goals? Please leave them in the live chat. Let us know what your goals are. But if increasing strength and performance are those part of your goals, improving muscle mass, maintaining and preserving strength over time, then possibly they would. Great question here. Okay, Brian has a great comment here. I think you all would like this. Brian Randall says, I am taking it 2.5 grams in the morning protein shake and 2.5 grams with my pre-workout. This is important to acknowledge. There's actually some interference possibly with caffeine and creatine. So I don't know that it's that big of a deal, to be honest. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill on this one, but there is evidence to suggest that co-ingestion of creatine with caffeine might decrease the absorption of creatine somewhat. Is it significant? Is it a big deal? Who really knows? Again, if it's around exercise, probably not a big deal. But if you are taking it pre-workout with caffeine, just understand there could be some sort of interference there. So that's a good one. Okay, Gina's goal here is at 43 to gain muscle, or at least not lose muscle. So again, the evidence suggests in both older and younger adults, women and men, that creatine around exercise improves strength and recovery and performance. So I think it would help you with your goals. Great question there. Kimberly says, my goals are not to be a potbelly chicken leg menopause woman. Kimberly, that is an awesome aspiration. So I think the way to avoid that scenario is to do resistance training, some sort of zone 2 training, some HIIT training, about 150 cumulative minutes per week in different workouts. We did the video 2 Saturdays ago about how to build muscle over 40, talking about the importance of prioritizing muscle. And so hopefully, if you haven't watched that one yet, I can drop it in the comments below. Okay. What else do we have? Accidental Hiker says, I've gained muscle on creatine, not too happy about it, but also very stronger. So as a hiker, you may be worried about your body weight because the more weight you have, the more mass you're carrying up a hill. I'm an avid hiker myself. On certain hikes, and trips, we'll do 22, 24 miles and so forth over several days. So I understand the aspirations to have a low body weight, but as you mentioned, you're stronger. So you got to do some trade-offs. I'd much rather be a little bit heavier yet stronger than weaker and lighter. That's just my opinion. But yeah, great comment there. Van Phillips says, always one more product to buy from you, of course, and one more thing we have to include in our lives. So Van Phillips, people have been buying creatine for the past 25 years. There's all sorts of stuff to buy. People are buying creatine anyway. Again, what makes this product different is the combination of creatine with electrolytes. You don't have to buy it. This is just a product out there that's very unique. There's over 651 reviews from people who are trying to optimize their health. So if you want to optimize your health too, and you want to read some of the reviews and see what people are saying about it, then have at it. But you don't have to buy it. There's plenty of creatine to be found in food. Chicken's not a good source of creatine. Eggs are not a good source of creatine. But if you're a vegan or vegetarian, you probably should supplement with creatine because you're not getting adequate levels from your diet. But Von Phillips, you don't have to buy anything. But trust me, people are buying creatine like crazy. There's probably $1 billion of creatine being sold just in the US alone. So just understand that I'm trying to help people optimize how to take it and so forth. Okay, Brian Randall says, comments on creatine, other benefits on memory. How is it already in your body? Most studies supplement and no real need to load. Creatine is in your body because, as I mentioned, it's made by glycine, methionine, and arginine by your kidney and kidneys and liver. Sorry, you only have one liver. And it's made from those essential amino acids that are found primarily in animal-based foods. But creatine is also a constituent in muscle flesh of animal-based foods. Its highest quantities are in red meat and lamb and actually fish, not so high in chicken or eggs. But yeah, supplementing it around exercise has an ergogenic benefit because increasing the muscular stores can help you have a little bit better workout. So that's the deal there. Okay. Oshi says, creatine and fasting. Why should I take it while fasting? That's a good question. Why take it while fasting? Well, with fasting, you can get dehydrated. That's been long known. And creatine can help intracellular and total body water uptake. So it can help prevent dehydration. So if you're worried about optimizing hydration during fasting, or maybe you're doing a dry fast, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to take creatine while you're fasting. But if you're going to exercise while you're fasting, you might have a little bit better of a workout. That's a thing. So I don't think it's going to interfere in any way with the health benefits or purported health benefits of fasting. But you don't obviously have to take it during fasting as well. I just think it's good to take around exercise, especially in hot environments, because creatine helps with its osmotically active properties, absorb water into muscle cells specifically. So great question. Okay, what's the ratio of creatine to sodium potassium would you recommend, Xavier? Well, I would just check out the Electrolyte 6 that we put together based upon the research. So those are the ratios based upon the studies that have been done in athletes. But you can make your own, right? But for the cost here, it's less than $1 a serving. And so that's why we put that together, and that's why people are getting benefits from that. So that's a good question, Xavier. Okay, Northern Wild says, bone broth every top tier for muscle building. Yeah, so bone broth is great for the glycosaminoglycans and collagen peptides and that's great. Bone broth is not, unfortunately, going to have a lot of creatine in it. But it is I love bone broth. I think people should consume a lot more bone broth and make their own soups and stews. I think that's phenomenal. It's just not going to be a huge source of creatine, but you are going to get electrolytes. You're going to get glycosaminoglycans and all the benefits for the hair, skin, nails, and gut health potentially. But it's not really a good source of creatine, but good comment. Okay, Craig says, I second the question on high volume training. Do you need more creatine than 5 grams a day to keep the saturation level up? Craig, that's a good question. I think, I don't know. It depends on your diet, to be honest. If you're having red meat, you're probably fine at 5 grams a day. If you feel like you need a little more, the only way to know is really test, honestly, is just tinker around with it and see what happens. Honestly, in most like high-end athletes, football players, I think there is probably a diminishing returns over 5-10 grams a day, especially if you get adequate creatine from the diet. I don't think more is better. I don't think more is problematic either, but I would focus on high volume training, get your sodium, intra-workout sodium, magnesium. You lose magnesium in the sweat, zinc in the sweat. So I would focus on that probably, to be honest. Okay, Celeste, thanks for the comment. She says, should we do a high loading dose prior to a daily maintenance dose? The data is mixed on that. I think it depends upon what type of training you're doing. The higher dosages are linked with more gastrointestinal issues. So if you're going to do a 20 gram creatine load for 5-7 days, then back down to 5 or 2.5 grams a day, you can certainly do that. But if you're getting adequate dietary sources of creatine, from more red meat periodically and things like that, you're probably okay just doing the 2.5 to 5 grams a day. So that's a good question, Celeste. Okay, there's a late YouTuber, Rich Piana, who made, according to him, a product that has 10 different types of creatine. How good do you think it is? And what could you boost from the effective absorption? You know what? There's all sorts of different types of creatine out there. Most people that do the 10 different magnesiums, 10 different creatines, it's a lot of marketing. That's what I would say there. So I think you're going to be fine with creatine monohydrate, especially again, if you pair it with electrolytes, the absorption is definitely enhanced, and there's a lot of good research to support that. Okay. Cameron says, creatine is a no-brainer. Great supplement with no side effects. If you don't want to buy it from Mike, just get some German capsules and mix it into a protein shake. Absolutely. Go ahead. It's all over the interwebs. Knock yourself out. Good comment. Thank you, Cameron. Drew literally just took creatine right now. Awesome, creatine. Drew, awesome, creatine. Awesome, Drew. What are you doing? Are you working out? Mr. Christopher Hammerin says, great information. Does regular intake of alcohol interfere with creatine uptake? I am a home brewer. I don't know if there's any interference with alcohol. The only interference effect that I've read in the literature is co-ingestion with caffeine. Might interfere with the absorption, but I'm not sure about alcohol. But alcohol is not good for your gut, or alcohol is not good anyway. And you shouldn't have alcohol around exercise. So just consume your creatine around exercise. That's what the data really shows. Beta-alanine is a great pre-workout to support intensity at higher rep ranges. Yeah, beta-alanine is cool. I do quite like beta-alanine. Good question. Sue Awesome Art says, do you have an opinion on an age minimum for boys to start taking creatine if they're already able to put muscle on from the diet and weightlifting? Once people are physically active, I think that you can take the gloves off and people can consume it around exercise. My daughter's 11 now, and she's been taking creatine for 2 years now around exercise. Not every day, but when we do hikes and when we do workouts, I recommend that because the better the workout is, the more progress she's going to get, the more likely exercise is going to be a habit. That's just the way that I look at it. So folks, really appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you found this helpful. You might want to take a screenshot of this right here. And this, again, is just showing how electrolytes are important in enhancing the creatine uptake, particularly sodium and potassium. And we know that co-ingestion of creatine with carbs and protein may enhance absorption. And most importantly, having creatine around exercise is going to increase the absorption. All right, Kimberly's going to mix up some electrolytes. Sounds amazing. Folks, I'm grateful that you tuned in all the way in. Hopefully you got some value from this conversation. Feel free to share this video with a friend. If you have any further comments or questions about these topics and so forth, just let me know in the comment section below. We're back to doing lives every Monday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 Eastern. Grateful that you tuned in. Have an awesome evening. Hopefully you get some exercise in at some point today. And we'll catch you next week on another live. Have a good one. Bye now.